dude, I feel like everybody's right and everybody's wrong.
100%. Why is this important? Why are we even going here? He's helped a lot of guys. He's also not had success with a lot of guys.
Come in with a purpose, and they're very intentional with what they do and how they do it.
From the majors to the sandlot, baseball and softball share space in one place. Welcome to the farm system.
Fellas, and the ladies, welcome back to another episode of The Farm. We're sitting down with my boy Jurell Henry, my guy. So we are sitting down for another episode. We are sitting down for another episode of Just Faith.
Just faith.
Jurell, I know I'm doing it to you again. You know what I'm saying? I don't give Jurell no time to prep. Something comes to my brain, I'm like, we doing it, baby. Let's just sit down. I want the spirit flowing through. So the other night, when I was in the shower, that's my time. That's my time.
Sanctuary.
Yep, my sanctuary time. So one thing that God revealed to me, and I wanted us to kind of discuss it and to go back and forth with it, right, is he said that the law wasn't designed to be your identity, but to reveal mine. And so I'm going to say that one more time. The law, my law, right? God's law wasn't designed to be our identity, but to reveal his. And so one of the things I thought about, and it's like how that connected with me so much with God's grace, mercy, and love and all those other things, right? Is his expectation, God's expectation is his, because the expectation he has is him. Right? Like it's his identity.
Yeah.
Right? And so when he has created us, obviously a lesser being, right? He doesn't expect us to be him, right? Because we can't be. He designed us. He knows we can't be, right? And also on top of that, the only one ever, to my knowledge, Jurell, the only person I know ever that has lived their entire life with no sin and lived by the law and fulfilled every single one of...
Some people out here that think they have.
Oh, well, there's plenty of those, right? But to my knowledge, Jesus is the only one. The one and only, right? God himself in the flesh, right? That is only the one that is fulfilled. And that's why Jesus in his own words saying that he came not to rewrite the laws, but to fulfill the laws, right? And so when I was spending time with him, it added to some affirmation for me of God's love, and also to helping me really understand my identity, where my identity is in him and is him, and how he defines me. But we tend to try to find all these ways to identify ourselves, and that one specifically, obviously, as well, right? When Jesus was talking to the Pharisees and everything at the time, is they identified with the law, and he was calling them out for identifying with the law, and then, like you mentioned, thinking that they were fulfilling and abiding by the law, even though they were falling well short of. Because basically what you're saying, and I'll open this, and I want to throw this to you and have you open on this, because I know we talk about this a ton, is why is that important? Is because like basically what you're saying is one, there's no need for Jesus, right? If I can just live by the law and do all of the things, well, and then someone would say, well, yeah, but like, okay, no, but he's dying for my previous sins. Okay, well, we can unpack, all the things all the places that we fall short on a daily basis, right? But also, too, the other thing that we're saying as well is that we're saying that we can be God, right? We don't need, like, for example, one of the fruits of the Spirit is self-control. Right? We run past that one all the time. And we just go, oh, I can control myself. I can control my tongue. I can control my feelings. I can control these things. Everything is underneath my control. Right? And so that's when we live by that. There's so many bad byproducts that come from that. But when you start thinking that you can do those other things, when that's one of the fruits of the Spirit is self-control. And again, it's one thing to read that, say that, hear that. It's another thing to experience that as the self-control that I have now comparatively when I didn't have God. But I want to throw that ball into your court with it. First off, what do you think about that, right, as well? And, let's
Well, the first thing when you mentioned that, it takes me back to this scene on The Chosen on season 3. If you haven't watched The Chosen,
Season 4 is about to come out.
I know, fire.
Like a couple days.
Yeah,
probably by the time
week.
this episode releases, it might
Thursday,
be out.
Actually,
Yeah, in theaters, baby.
Code, if you're doing this, play this clip. But in The Chosen, in season 3, he's visiting his hometown, and it's the scene, and I forget which chapter in the Bible.
I know you're going. You reposted this on TikTok.
It's my favorite scene.
I know.
You know, they asked Jesus to read the scripture on what were they celebrating? Was it Passover?
I'm not sure, honestly.
They're celebrating.
I know what scene you're talking about.
They're celebrating something, and so during this, I guess it was tradition for the priest to read the scriptures, but they had Jesus read it this time, and so basically, Jesus read from Isaiah, which was prophesying about himself. In the scene, the teacher of the law, the Pharisee, he, after Jesus said what he said, he's like, "You spat upon the law of Moses." And then Jesus turns around and says, like, "I am the law of Moses." Fire scene.
Yeah.
But the point,
and they're like, "Kill him!"
Yeah, literally, they're like, "Murder him now!"
Yeah. Because what he was saying in that moment is, "I'm God."
Yep.
Yeah, I am. Like, I am God. I am the law of Moses.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I know you like to open this one up, but how the Pharisees viewed Moses at the time, right? And then like their hierarchy of everything is like Moses.
Church.
It was God and then Moses,
very,
right?
very human. Like Abraham, Moses, these historic figures in faith. And like, while they should have honor for them, and also they were God's chosen, for sure. But it isn't for us to hold in a higher regard. Obviously, you have God standing right in front of you, and that's where they're struggling as well. Because like we often do that now, right? Is like we love to whatever's present. Like we have a hard time accepting greatness in current time
right now,
like right in this moment, right in this present moment, we have a hard time accepting greatness, and there's a lot of things to overcome. A lot of times, even to like some of the most famous scientists, some of the most, again, like at the time, right, you could take somebody like, we were talking about this the other day, but you could take somebody like MLK, right, where so many people were opposed, and now, again, like you have a national holiday, right, like where it's like one of the most historic days and one of the most celebrated holidays of tradition now, right? But it's like at the time, obviously, that was not the case, which is why he was killed, right? As there were a lot of people that did not agree with what he said, what he thought, his belief systems, all those other things, right? And so you take that back and you think about that, right, too, as well. It's like when Jesus was there, like you got to remember, like someone asked me this the other day about like the intention behind the writers of the disciples, right? Like when they're writing, pieces of the Bible, right? And like, well, what's their intentions? Well, we also got to remember, like now we look back at Paul, now we look back at David, now we look back at all these historic figures, right? Matthew, and we go, wow, what faith, how amazing, man! Like the foundation of the church, all these things, right? But what we miss is at the time, it was not. It was a very serious accusation to say that you were following Jesus. Like, I mean, they were killing. They killed him. They were killing his followers. Most of the disciples that walked with Jesus and or the apostles, right, that you also have like as well, were getting chased down. Again, like family members were getting taken as well. You got to remember, they're like, it isn't just their life, right? They got family with them. Like, there's like, oh, you're the wife of, you're the brother of, you're all these other things, right? Like the families were getting, because at the time, like, the church and the belief systems that were at the time, like people were killing over what people believed, right? Which is crazy. And its standpoint is like, think about that. And we had that conversation the other day. Well, maybe we'll get into it in a little bit here too. But the conversation of like, literally, I disagree with how you think. So you got to go.
You got to die.
Yeah, you got to die. And how wild that is, that like how much identity we find in our ideas and our belief systems, to the point that, again, it makes us so, and again, time and time again throughout history, that we have to eliminate this other mindset because it threatens our way of how we want to live or how we currently believe right now, and how wild that is. And I think that that's actually a great scene that you pulled there too as well, because he's literally saying, I am the law of Moses. Like, I am the law.
Mm-hmm.
It reveals my identity. And so with a deeper unpack for me was I want to layer deeper. The reason that meant so much to me too was every time I fall short, it isn't to label me that, oh, I'm the sinner. I can't, I don't have control in this area. Oh, again, I can't upkeep this, right? That is not my identity, but it reveals where me and God are different.
Mm-hmm.
And then reveals to me why I can trust his character because he is those things.
Mm-hmm.
He is grace. Like, he is love. Like, he is, again, like, all the laws that he gave us is so that we would get a better understanding of the difference between where we are and where he is, right? And just comparison from a divine perspective, right? If someone's like, what's the difference between me and you, right? Like, right? And God, it was the same thing too. It's like, okay, again, with us and where our minds are at, like how it was like a profound thing for me to think about that, right? It's like, he's trying to reveal to me in the most gentle way. Oh, you want to know what the difference is between me and you? I almost think about it like two professional athletes, right? You both are sitting, like, let's say you're both corners, whatever. And you sign up and you're like, oh, what's the difference? Like, I'm the same height as this dude. You know what I'm saying? I'm just as athletic. What's the difference with this guy's making $20 million a year? I'm making whatever. There ain't no difference. And then all of a sudden, when we try to do the same task, right? We try to defend the same guy. The stats look very different.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's a famous story. I said this about, there was this guy that got called up to spring training for a professional team, and he went out to the outfield. And at the time, Josh Hamilton, which was at the time was like a really big time player. He was like one of the best hitters in baseball, all these things. And he was in the outfield with him, and they were out there, and he was telling the story about how when he was out there, he was like, bro, what's the difference? Like this guy's not that much better than me. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if anything, like, there's a lot of things I'm better than him at, and blah, 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 and like all these things. And he was like, bro, by the end of the season, I had a really good idea what the difference was between me and him.
Mm-hmm.
And often, we talked about that, and I've said that in a different podcast, is often, success, often even greatness is missed because it's in these small details that seem minor to us until you get on the other side and you go, oh, that's actually like a really big deal.
Yeah.
The things that guy can do over, again, there is a major difference.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, there's a lot of similarities between me and that other person, but also too, it's so interesting. And I know that we've had these conversations where I can feel how much I've grown when I go back to similar environments, or when the same situation comes up again, and how I choose to handle it this time compared to how I've handled it in the past, and how easy it may feel to handle it this time than it did in the past. And it's because, like, I'm a different person. Like, I've grown, right? Like, I know how to handle this a different way. Like, there's different ways of how I would speak or go about it or whatever, right? And so, again, tying that back through is like, then when I fall short, instead of shaming, bringing guilt, condemnation, all of those things, instead, it can be a time of appreciation and gratitude, because now I can go, wow, what an amazing God we serve. I struggle with this, right? I struggle with this. And this is, again, like, I can't do what he can do.
Yeah.
I fell short in this area. You know what I'm saying? I could have been a better parent. I could have been a better coach. I could have been a better dad. I could have been a better brother. I could have been whatever in that moment, right? I didn't speak the truth with love. I wasn't gentle. I wasn't all these things. I wasn't God, right? But it brings me awareness of who God is and the God that I do serve. So instead of that being a time of, again, guilt, shame, condemnation, like all these other things, instead it just brings me awareness of who I am, which is his, right? And I'm happy that I'm serving the God that has grace and all those things for me, but also to like who he is and his identity. So much more how powerful that is too.
Yeah. No, I think it's I think what it comes down to would obviously, like, cliche wise, perspective, right? But even if you look at the perspective that the Pharisees had in those moments, like you said, like their lack of prevented them from seeing God that was with them in the moment. And then you look at Nicodemus, for example, right? And like his faith, and not even his faith, right? But his curiosity to say, like, with all these, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I just learned this the other day, like 713 laws that we have to follow.
400.
400?
Yeah.
Guy told me it was 17 or 713. I don't know where that number came from.
Yeah. I think it's, I think
400, and they created like 300 other more, or?
Yeah, maybe to protect, maybe that's what he was saying. There was Jewish laws, it was like 436 or something like that, I think is what it was. I could be wrong now.
Yeah,
but anyways, hundreds of laws. Most people just know the 10 Commandments.
Yeah, but I mean, no,
right?
Like,
thou shalt not kill.
Thou shalt not pick up your coat
false witness
on Tuesday. Yeah,
yeah. There was a lot of, like, again, ceremonial, religious, from like religious traditional laws that were put in there, right? So and again, you got to remember at the time, there's so many people that just think of the 10 Commandments and they're like, oh, I don't do these 10 Commandments, which, again, when we get into the details, it's a whole nother thing.
Don't do that either.
Yeah. We all fall short of that too. Like great. But people's like, well, I ain't killed nobody. It's just like,
cool.
All right.
Lied yesterday.
Listen, there was a lot, and that's where Jesus came at the time, and he was like talking about, obviously, the commandments there. And again, not to get us off track there, but yeah, there was hundreds of laws.
Yeah, and think
that they were trying to upkeep, and if they didn't, that they were sinning against
God. Yeah. And Nicodemus questioned that. It's like, with all these laws that we have, are we putting God inside of a box? And through that, he was able to come to the realization of who, he had the opportunity, Jesus, to interact with, and like understand, like, oh wow, like I'm in the presence of God, versus the Pharisees, who, again, going back to that scene, like, yo, I'm going to kill this man because he thinks he's greater than Moses. Like, no one's greater than Moses.
He's got to die. Yeah,
gotta die.
Yeah.
And I was looking for in scriptures, I just read it, I don't know if it was Paul wrote it, I don't know if it was in Thessalonians or in Timothy afterwards or somewhere around that area. He talked about how basically, I believe it was this, Jesus is greater than Moses. Jesus the second Adam.
Yeah, if Moses is great, then what is Jesus?
Exactly. And then if there was no need for Jesus if the law was sufficient.
Yeah, might have been. I wanted to say that
it was somewhere in that area.
It might be First Galatians.
Maybe. But I thought it was so interesting when you bring up those points. It's just like those that became the experts in the law, their foundation, instead of being on God, became the law. And if you try to teeter along or disturb their foundation, the law, then again, you deserve, i.e. death. Or you're missing, like you always say, like you miss the opportunities for love, the opportunities for empathy.
Yeah.
It's more or less like you're wrong, you're right. So I guess it all comes down to shifts in perspective.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it wasn't First Galatians. I'm in Second Galatians. I was looking here because, again, they're basically when I'm trying to find the because I know the exact verses that you're talking about. I'm just thinking about like where the location is, but like obviously, again, the mindset behind in the beginning part of Galatians, he's like, how quickly you guys forget, right? Like how quickly, like we're being tied to these things. So like in Second Galatians, one of the things that we bringing this part up is okay. So Galatians 2 verses 12, when he first arrived, he ate with the Gentile believers who were not circumcised, but afterward, when some friends and James came, Peter wouldn't eat with Gentiles anymore. He was afraid of criticism from these people who insisted on their necessary circumcision. Gosh. As a result, other Jewish believers followed Peter's hypocrisy, and even Barnabas was led astray by their hypocrisy. The reason I was bringing that part up too as well is like specifically there. I know that that's not what we're locating, but the reason that I was bringing that up too as well is, again, like there was these people at the time, like the Jewish people at the time, had all of these rules, regulations, laws, all these things, like you said, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of laws that they're trying to upkeep. We have a problem trying to upkeep 10. Okay. And you got to understand some of these things, not the 10 Commandments, some of these things, those other laws, like for example, when it came into like certain Jewish holidays and like what they needed to do and how clean they needed to be and who needed to present this, and it had to be it had to be all these other things, right? And okay, there's the other part with this too. Okay, again, a lot of these laws were not even, and again, these were Jewish traditional laws. These were laws that were put in place to help them not sin,
religion,
but then got thrown into where you had to upkeep all of these, when in reality, again, they completely missed the mark. Completely missed the mark. Like they got led astray.
That's what happens when humans get involved.
Yes, humans got involved, and then it was like, okay, well, that's why. So to make sure that this needs to happen, so I'm gonna put this law in front of this law. It's like think of it like this. Let's say the first law was like, don't run the red light. Let's start simple. Don't run the red light. Then the Jewish people came and put a law and put, well, within 300 feet of the light, you shouldn't be going more than 40 miles an hour, just to ensure that you could stop at the light. Then they added another law in front of it that said we shouldn't drive Monday mornings before 10.
Too high.
Just, again, that's when there's a lot of people running lights. Mm-hmm. So that's another way we can protect them from running lights. And then they added another light. Then they added another law that was like, you know what? We're just not going to drive cars. It's just like, that's kind of like how the laws got stacked on top of each other, and they've escalated from the original intention, which was like, hey, we're actually in spirit are trying just to protect people from not dying, right? From like running this red light, right? But in reality, then we got to a place where we started condemning boxing, creating a place where it's like no one can drive a car.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's just too tempting to sin. It's too this blah blah blah. And then we forgot the understanding where it's like the whole point wasn't about the sin in the first place. The whole point from the very beginning was, one, to reveal God's character, and two, to bring us closer to God, not further from God. And when we start going, and again, enemies whispering in our ears, people get involved, all these other things, that whole thing gets led a lot of human directions, right? There's this hierarchy that starts getting built where it's like, well, I go by all 5 laws and you only do these 3, and I'm better and I never drive my car. Yeah, because I'm so holy, or blah, blah, blah. Right? And it's like, okay, hold on. That's not what this was about at all, right? And that's where
literally
the confusion, right, when Jesus is coming back, is like, again, when he's talking to them, it's like, hey, yes, I hear your tradition. Yes, I hear your religion, but I'm trying to get you to see it from a different perspective, because, again, before Abraham, like I am, before the beginning of the world, like I was here. So I can tell you the intention of the original laws, right? Where we've stacked all this human
minutia
on top of the real reasons. And we're going a whole nother, it's just causing division. It's causing the opposite. It's causing you to get pushed away from me,
i.e.
right?
Religion.
Yeah, exactly. Like religion, and also to the other part of this as well is like the enemy, again, infiltrating the church, right? Which is the control, the shame, all these things, which again, there's still a lot of churches today that still battle. And again, just to throw this in there, right? He is the prince of deception. Again, the Bible makes it very clear that he is a threat to be reckoned with, that he is very powerful, that he has all these other things. But at the same time, the Bible also makes it clear, while he is much more powerful than humans, right? God, they're not yin and yang.
No.
They're not good and evil, and it's like these two competing forces. Again, God, Bible says that with a breath, he'll take care of Satan. With a breath. All right.
I think the biggest thing also that I just also read that verse. He said the devil walks around like a roaring lion.
Like.
Not a roaring lion, but like
because
one.
God's described in another part of the Bible as a lion, right? So it's so important there.
Impersonation.
Yes. That's why it's so important there. It's like the enemy loves to appear like God, right? And wants to convince you that he is.
Yep.
And so because of that, we can get led astray of all these other things. And a lot of times the God, because we think, especially in American society, right?
Yeah.
We think God and we think, okay, one person, right? Monotheistic, right? Like, okay, one God, got it. But we don't realize that, no. There's still, a lot of us are worshiping different gods, right? And it's like, well, what do you mean? I think about, God, the clouds and the sky and heaven and the things. Yeah.
What's your car?
Yeah. Your car, right? Your family, your friends, you're worshiping what people think, your job, your performance, all these other things.
Yeah.
And then also on top of that too, which all of those things, think about this, right? Because this is, and Jurell and I talk about this all the time, but this is the other thing too as well, is that what a great deception to make you believe that the God you're following is the God of the universe. And then when you get hurt by not following him and you're following somebody else that's pretending to be like him, then you start to go, I'm done with God. I'm out. I'm out, right? This is how God wasn't God. God wasn't Godding. You know what I'm saying? Right? Like he wasn't there for me. He blah, 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 all these other things, right? And it's because, again, the God that we are, that we believe to be God, the character, I tell people this all the time. If I saw God how you saw God, right, I wouldn't want to follow him either. I'd be out doing my own thing. I swear to you, I wouldn't be living my life this way. If my relationship with God and the God I knew was like the God you knew, oh no, my life would look very different. But that is not, right? And again, you got to remember this. It's like the same thing too. It's like wanting to have a relationship with me, but someone's just pretending to be me, right? And you're like, man, I hate that guy.
That Joey guy sucks.
And I'm like, bro, you never even met me.
Not me.
You never even met me. You met someone that's impersonating me. And you know who impersonates God all the time? People. The enemy, right? All these things, right? And it's really the enemy in the first place, right? As like the world impersonates God, right? It tries to, again, on the same side of that, right? Like money impersonates God. It's one of the biggest things in the Bible, right?
Control now.
Yeah.
On freedom.
Or and just material things, right? There's so many things in this world that we believe, and they're doing a series at church right now. And some of the points, he went across the myths, and I thought these were pretty cool, the ones that he brought up. And every year at Central, they do, to start the year, he starts going over money, right? And the reason he talks about this too as well, it's like, again, statistically, when we look at like psychology, like all the fights across marriages, when it comes to disagreements, fights, all the things, period, like the data comes back, it's like the largest contributor is money, right? Most of the arguments revolve back to money. And so again, he kind of talks about that as like why it's so important, why the church needs to talk about money. It's like these are the issues that obviously the community is struggling with, the church is struggling with, and like nobody wants to talk about it, right? And it's like, well, then what are we here for, basically, right? And so yeah, so in any case, going back to the myths, the first one was myth 1, more would make me happy. Right? More of anything, right? Is it more money, bigger car, more cars, bigger house, a house, right? More dogs, more babies, whatever, right?
Probably not the last.
Yeah. More girls, more boyfriends, more whatever that is, right? More would make me happy, right? And so he went into that of he made this great point. So he's like, the world will tell you that success plus money equals great wealth. But Paul brought a different perspective. When Paul was writing, he said, godliness plus contentment equals great wealth, which is a totally different perspective, obviously, from the world. And he went into it and untied that. But it's like, and then he went in specifically and started talking about that. It's like, there's nothing against success or money, right? But he said, but if you got success and you have money, and he's like, but we did a little equation, minus godliness, like you ain't got no godliness, all you got is success and money. He's like, all you're going to have is great frustration. And so there's so many people obviously that have had all this, that have all the success, and they still feel like they're not happy or they don't have enough, right? They still feel like they need more. They still feel like they're not fulfilled. They still feel like all of those different things, right? And because again, if we don't have God in it, right? Like he said, and then he made the point, he was like, 90%, 20%, I'll go another 20% of what I can do, right, with God is far greater than 100% of what I can do without God, And then he moved on to myth number 2. Myth number 2 is more will solve my problems, right? If I just had more money, then all these problems would go away. If I just had more success, all these things would go away. If I just had that house, or if I just had that job, or if I just had that boyfriend, or if I just had that girlfriend, if I just had those things, if I had this life that I wanted, then all my problems would go away, right? And again, obviously no one lives a problem-free life. That's ridiculous from the get-go. Just assume that's possible, right? Yeah, and so he referenced 1 Timothy 6, 9 through 10. And maybe that's where I read it. Maybe it is in 1 Timothy. Maybe you're right. But people who long to be rich fall into temptation and are trapped by many foolish and harmful desires that plunge them into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. And so he made it very clear here. He goes, I want to go back. Many people will quote this verse and say, money is the root of all evil. That's not what it says. It says, for the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. And then he went into myth number 3, which is more will give me security, right? And if I just had more money, then I'd feel more secure. I'd feel safe. I'd feel, like I'm protected, right? And he's like, don't get me wrong. He's like, again, of course, it gives us some bandwidth, but also too, this is where, he went back into 1 Timothy. He's like, we think, right? Oh, if I just had more money, well, it's like, okay, well, how many people had more money but put in the stock market and then it crashed? Or had real estate and all of a sudden all the real estate is gone? Or all of a sudden, COVID hits and all your money's gone. Like in a moment, it could be taken away from you. And all the money that you had, how many millionaires, how many people that had all their, right now, how many people had all these houses, Airbnbs, built all these things up, right? And then all of a sudden the market flipped. Right. And now some of these people are struggling with all these mortgages and people don't want to rent and they're not doing all these other, all of these things are happening. Right. And I thought your security came from money. Yeah. I thought if you just had more money, everything will be good. Yeah. Right. And so he was saying again, along with that is he goes, money is a great tool, but it's a terrible master.
That's it.
And then 1 Timothy 6:17 is teach those who are rich in this world not to be proud and not to trust in their money, which is too unreliable. And then 17 through 19 is their trust should be in God, who richly gives all we need for our enjoyment. Tell them to use their money to do good. They should be rich in good works and generous to those in need, always being ready to share with others. By doing this, they will be storing up their treasure as a good foundation for their future so that they may experience true life. And so I thought this was great. He kind of talked about true life and experience real life. And he's talking about spiritual life, right? He's not talking about, that's why he said true in front of life, right? Like spiritual life is to have life from, in your spirit is different than having physical life, right? And so this was when Jesus was describing baptism and all the same thing, right? It's spiritual life. It's for us, keeping in mind is and Pastor Judd did a really good job of illustrating this of to experience true life is to have, to have a generous life, to give. It's better to give than receive. And also our relationship with money is, those are our 3 myths, right? I'm going to be happier. It's going to make me more secure, right? And all my problems will go away, right? Well, what does God promise us? Or be happier, right? He's our security, right? He's our joy. He's our security, right? And we're supposed to come to him with our problems. He doesn't promise that they'll all go away. Yeah. Right? And even God, if even God doesn't promise that you'll have a problem-free life, why do we think money will give us a problem-free life? Right? And if you believe in your head that all of those 3 things, those 3 myths are true in your head, then when you don't have, and even when you do gain, because this is the problem, when you do gain and you believe that it will go away, you start thinking, Well, I just need more money. Well, I'm not happy. Well, because I need more money.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not secure. Well, I just need more money. Then I'll be secure. Oh, well, I just don't have like, I'm not as, I don't have the happiness. I don't have the security, right? And I don't have the problems. Well, my belief system is, obviously there's people with more money that don't have these issues, or my perception is that they don't have these problems and they don't have these security issues or all these other things. And it's like, yo, I've seen people with all, I know you have too, people with all this money that have more money, more problems. They ain't there for no reason, right? I got more money, more problems. They're making more money, but they got more problems. I'm telling you right now, again, like I'm making more money. I also got to deal with way more problems, right? But it's okay. Like I'm not trying to make the problems go away, right? Like that's part of it, right? It's an opportunity. So again, along with that is that we got to be very mindful that what becomes our God, right, is like where we're trying to find security, where we're trying to find happiness, right? And where we're trying to find safety.
Yeah.
Right. So again, and he was talking about money there, but that can be applied over to so many things, right? Sometimes it's our job, our kids, right? Like our families. So again, like, going through those, just be mindful, like, again, where do you find your happiness, right? Where do you find your solution to your problems? Like, where do you, find your security? And a lot of times you can see how easily that could be from the world's perspective is they want to run to people. Well, again, people can be taken away from you too. Right? I know people that have lost family members because of death, sickness, also to arguments, fights, perspective change, tragedy, all these other things, right? Like people can be taken from you, right? And it doesn't mean that we should not ever get attached to people. It's going to happen, but our foundation
part,
right? And also who do we run to? Are we what is the first, and I'm guilty, the first person you run to, right? Do you run to God first? Or do you run to your best friend first? Do you run to your mom first, your dad first, your brother first, your friend, whatever, right? Where is the first place I run when I have a problem? Two, on the southern side, like, what's the first place I run, like when I want happiness or I want joy? Like, where do I run to that? Right? And that's, again, it could be the gym, or it could be whatever,
wrong with that.
Right? But again, just understanding that from the foundation, right? It's just from the foundation. It doesn't mean that other things don't bring you, because again, God is in those things, right? But you got to remember that those are His creation,
for sure,
right? He designed these things, not for us. Again, one of the things he brought up in the message too is like sometimes a lot of people interpret God, right? It's like He's holding me back from all these things, right?
He's only doing things.
God is not a killjoy.
No, He's only for you.
He ain't sitting up there going like, "Oh, she loves that, I'm taking it. Oh, he loves that, I'm taking it." Oh, like all these other things, right? Now, one of the things that's super important for that, like in that same way, is like God has created all these things. Like again, and there's a difference between happiness and joy, right? Like again, the Bible like separates the two, right? Is like underlying that. Again, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't find that we're not happy when we're hanging out with people or again with our friends or any of those other things, but from our foundation, our root, like where is our identity? Is our identity then placed in those things? Because when I don't have that, right, when the storm comes, I read this one the other day. This was in that chapter of the book I was reading. You'll like this. So one thing that they did is they did this experiment. I think it was an experiment where they took trees and they grew them inside a very controlled environment, like inside of a dome type setup. The trees would grow, and then when they get to a certain height, they would just fall over. Not even close to their max height that they've seen like out in the wild and all this stuff. And they're like, why are they doing this? So what they figured out was that as the tree was growing in the wild, the wind would push the tree and the roots would get deeper and more grounded because it had to support the tree from that. So as the tree gets taller, the resistance, right, and the I'm gonna go perturbations. I'm thinking science, right? But again, the instability, right, and from the wind and all the resistance made the roots get thicker, deeper, and more grounded, right? And it had to grow deeper roots, right? So that it could support the tree. But when it met no resistance and it just started growing at a certain height, the whole tree would just fall over because it couldn't support itself from the slightest issue, right? And so that's where when we think, and again, we start growing and we think that like we want this life that has no problems.
No.
The problems are a blessing because they make our foundation and our grounding deeper so that it could sustain when people just want to go to the top of the mountain, right? They just want to be the tallest tree, but they don't got the roots, right? And we want to be so quick, right? We want to be the tallest tree. We want to have the biggest branches. We want to, we want to see me, look at me, but we're so easy to fall because again, that's 100% me and 0% God, right? I'm going to control all the factors. I'm going to put you in a dome, no wind, no problems, perfect nutrition, all the things, right? Perfect world, right? But again, our perfect world or our valuation of what we believe, because you got to think about this too. Okay, great. We can do a better life than how God designed us to be and all the things. Okay, how is that working out for us? How many generations now we have like zero godliness, the family ain't like that, all the things, and we just gonna do it our own little perfect life. We could design and control these other things. How's that working? Not because it didn't work good for me or nobody else I know. Like, and again, a life with God is not to say all your problems are gonna go away.
Yeah.
God never says that. He says the opposite. He says, in this life, you will face many trials and tribulations.
Because if ain't nothing happening, you dead.
Yeah. And that's when Paul's talking about, again, like how important it is. Like it is a blessing for the wind.
Yeah.
The wind is a blessing. You see it's annoying, all these other things, but like the wind is a blessing.
Yeah.
The resistance is a blessing. If you didn't have to push, yeah, you know what? Someone may have gone through less than you to get to where they're going. But guess what? You got deeper roots. But guess what? You're more solidified and you could sustain where you're at. They might be a flash in the pan.
Yep. And falling over the net.
Right? And also, too, they may be in a dome where they don't have to deal with all this wind.
Nice and protected.
Right? Nice and protected. And maybe one day that comes together. Maybe it doesn't, right? That's God, again, let God handle that stuff. But for you, maybe God knows that you're going to face something later in your life, as you get taller, as your tree grows, and all these other things, right? That there's going to be some resistance. Something might happen in your life, right? You might lose someone that you really love. You might, might lose your business. I don't know what it is. I have no idea what it is for you in your life, right? Maybe you're going through that right now. But again, that was the preparation, like God preparing.
Yeah.
Right? Is going through struggle. You got to reframe that in your head where it's like, why are all these things happening to me? Like, why would God let these things happen? And you got to try to go your own way. And meanwhile, it's like the same thing. It's like someone going in the weight room and being like, why I got the heaviest weights, man? Man, why I got to do all these lunges, man? Why I got to do, it's like, because we going into battle, man. You need to be strong. We got to get you ready. If I send you out there not ready, am I really coaching you? If I send you out there into the real world with you not being prepared, am I really for you?
Said the harvest is plenty, but the workers are few.
And so that's where the perspective of being flip-flopped, right? That we just want all these things to be, everything, all these blessings without struggle and all these things to happen, all these material things to happen in our life. And we want all these other things. Okay, great. You get the husband that you wanted and all other things. And he's the greatest man and all the blah, 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 and all those things. Okay, great. But you're not the woman that could sustain him. You don't pour life into him. You steal life from him. You don't bring him joy. He might bring you joy, but you don't bring him joy. You just take from him. Now what? Great, you guys got married. Great, all these other things. Great. Also, too, now you got 2 marriages. Now you got divorced 2 times, and then you had all these other things happen, right? Like, and again, not a shame thing, right? This is where, again, along with it, like me too. I want things quick too. This is something I have to remind myself of too all the time. Is that again, and that's why I made that post the other day. Is that we spend too much time focused on what we want rather than who we need to become to get what we want. We spend too much time daydreaming about our vision and my life's going to look like this and all these other things. Great. You know how many people could sit outside and say they want a Benz? awesome, amazing. But at the end of the day, you got to also get to a point. One of this quotes that I really like too is like, you got to be okay with living without it. Like before you have anything, if you need it,
foundation.
If you need it,
shaky,
you shouldn't have it.
Yep.
It's a check for your heart. And I know that's so hard to hear when you really want something, when you really you're like, I need this. Like, I need to be with them. I need this car. I need this job. I need these other things. And it's like, no. Like, you got to think about it. Everybody that really does have those things and it's sustainable really doesn't need it. That's why they could sustain it so much. That's why, for example, like I think about this all the time because I've grown so much in this area. Let's say it's like let's say it's a relationship in any fashion. Like we can even think this could be a friendship. This can be an intimate relationship. This could be with a player, all these other things. If you need them to like you, if you need them to be happy all the time, if you need them to always support you, if you need them not to criticize you, if you need them to always be gentle and loving, if you need them to do any of those other things, you're going to be in a tough relationship. Because that other person is human.
You looking for Jesus.
You looking for God. You looking for God and expecting it from a human. God's got nothing but time for you. Endless. Nothing but patience for you. Endless. God's got nothing but love for you. Endless. Me, I'm tired, bro. I'm going to bed. You know what I'm saying? Me, there's some days I'm having a bad day. I'm not going to be the most gentle. I'm not going to be the most loving. Right? Me, there's plenty of times, you know what I'm saying, where it just, again, maybe I don't have whatever you're looking for.
Yeah.
Security that you're looking for. I can't give you the security. I'm not going to be here forever. God is. I might die. Like, I can't be your foundation. You know? And so I think that that's the other piece of people understanding that, and the same thing. And this is the other thing. When I get detached from that, I feel like I can be a better partner, better friend, the other partner in that relationship, right? Yeah. Even if, let's say it's like me and you, right? Okay, so let's say it's me and you. Well, if I'm not attached to, if I'm getting all this energy from you, what if you come in having a bad day? Right? Well, if I don't need that energy from you, or I don't need you, like, for example, I might have to have a conversation with you that is, maybe you hurt my feelings the other day, right? And I'm going to come in there and be like, oh, Jay, well, but if I need you to like me, like, I might not even bring it up, right? Might not even bring it up. Like, well, what if we fight? Well, what if we do blah, blah, blah? What if we do these other things, right? But also too, like, am I actually being a good friend to you? Maybe you are misstepping. Maybe you made a step this way and I wanted to talk to you about it. Or maybe I misstepped or whatever, and I feel like I can't come to you.
Yeah.
Because what if Jurell gets really upset with me because I did this, right? When we both have that foundation and we have our identities in other places, well, then now I'm so grounded with God that I'm not attached to it.
Yeah.
We can just talk.
Yeah.
we can just talk, and I can tell you how I'm feeling, and you know what? You might be upset for a day, right? Like, I might be upset for a day. Maybe we do get into an argument too, right? But I know that we're going to come back together, right? We're having a disagreement right now. Maybe we're upset about something. Maybe you did something that hurt my feelings. I hurt my feelings. We had a conversation, right? And then you go off, I go off, and I'm like, oh, damn, he's right about that. And you're like, oh, yeah, damn, he's right about that. And then we come back and like, all right, man, I'm sorry about this and the things, and I could have handled that better and all these other things, right? But when you don't have that, and your world starts crumbling, here comes the rain and the storm and all the things, and your foundation, and my thing is well, and also too, if you're worried, it's like when you're on the field and you're playing not to lose.
Yep.
When you're playing not to lose, you're really passive.
Yep.
Right? You're walking on eggshells all the time, right? Like, no, we're playing to win.
Yep. And
so because we're playing to win and my foundation is in God, right, is that I'm not tied to, the other person's emotions or with their mental state at the time or what I need them to be, right? Like, I'm good. I'm already grounded, And so, but I know we found that. Do you have that verse pulled up? I was going to have you read it. I know that which
one?
The Hebrews, I have it on mine too. Hebrews 3. Yeah, Hebrews. So this is what the verses that Jurell was saying earlier. It was Hebrews 3 and 4.
Yeah, it says, but Jesus deserves far more glory than Moses, just as the person who builds a house deserves more praise than the house itself. For every house has a builder, but the one who built everything is God.
Yeah. And that's where, like, again, at the time, like, basically everybody was, again, they didn't want to praise Jesus, which obviously is far greater than Moses. Like, he's like, I am the law of Moses. Like, I'm the one that gave Moses the laws that y'all are worshiping. Like, I'm the writer of the laws. It's like, don't you understand? And to them, again, like what? What? You're a human standing right in front of me.
Can't be the God.
Yeah. And again, the mindset of us as human beings that we think in our consciousness that we're going to be able to wrap our head around God is just.
It goes back to foundation though. Like this whole, the whole conversation is like your foundation might be shaken if what you believe in is disproved. Like, holy crap. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Human psyche is so interesting. Yeah. And again, like just hardened hearts, right? Like, we get this, we get in this hardened place of like, inside that same chapter from that book that I've been reading too.
Underneath it.
I tweeted, what it was right underneath it. What were you saying?
It says, today when you hear his voice, don't harden your hearts as Israel did when they rebelled, when they tested me in the wilderness. There your ancestors tested and tried my patience, even though they saw my miracles for 40 years. So I was angry with them, I said. Their hearts always turn away from me. They refuse to do what I tell them. So in my anger, I took an oath. They will never enter my place of rest.
So Dan Gilbert has this quote: human beings are works in progress that mistakenly think they're finished. Right? I'm like, oh, yeah, me too.
Right.
But yeah, we get in this place, and again, I'm still breaking free. This is a Me Too thing as well. Is again, like, what are you defending? Like, what are you defending? Like your ideas, which you thought to be true. Like you're defending your hill, right? Like this is the land where I'll this is where my last stand. Yeah. I'm dying on this hill, and it's just like,
there's more hills.
Yeah. It's just like, okay, like it. And again, I get this, like, again, at different parts of my life, like a lot. I mean, I'll die with God. You know what I'm saying? But like, it to what? To like be right, or to like, okay, what if you were wrong? And also too, he talks about in that chapter too. He talks about I'm going back and forth between Bible and this book I'm reading, but he goes into that chapter and he's talking about, just the mindset behind, again, if I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Right. And also too, you need to know you're wrong. Like right now, Jurell, I know I'm wrong about God. How do I know I'm wrong about God? Because he's God and I'm human, and I can only see a sliver of him, right? And I'm working to see more of him every day and understand his character more every day. And he's doing that through my sanctification process. As I grow and live life with him and do all those things, his character is more revealed to me every day. Do I doubt God? All the time. Every day. I doubt God every day about what he's capable of doing, what he is doing, what's going on right now, why these things, why things are happening. And again, I have those conversations, with him, right? Not separate from him, all those other things. I come to him like, God, what you doing?
Facts.
What's going on with this?
Happening right now.
Yeah. Also on the other side of that, again, the other thing as well, again, people think that all the time, especially, I think it's so interesting, and I know that you share this as well. It's like so many people think when it comes to God, because of like the relationship they perceive that I have with God, is like I don't ever have any doubts. I'm human.
Yeah.
I doubt God all the time.
Every
and also
day.
too, this is the thing. We also we got to understand everything also works on a spectrum. You don't even understand. I don't care how long you've been walking with God. I don't care if you don't know God, right? If you don't understand how much we doubt him and how little faith we have, even if you've been walking with him for the longest time, it's like, again, if you really, on the other side of that, like, why would we do anything underneath our own power, with our own thoughts, with our own things? If God is who he says he is, let's just say he is. Let's just say he is who he says he is. Why would I want to make decisions? Why would I not want to ask him? He creates everything and knows how everything's moving. He the plug. He knows everybody and can make everybody move. And knows the perfect thing, literally the thing to say, to do.
But what a beautiful ploy by the devil to make you think opposite.
Oh, I literally one night, me and Taylor were sitting in the jacuzzi, and I asked Taylor, and I said, you know how silly it is? The fact, like, for example, we think we can just, there's so many things where it's like, oh, it's such a small thing. I don't need to like bring this to God, right? Like, for example, and I brought this up, I said, like, come into the jacuzzi. It sounds simple, right? Like, I'm going to go to the jacuzzi. Well, why would I need to talk to God about it? Well, what if there was some guy walking around here about to take somebody out in a jacuzzi? I don't know. Like, you know, like, I don't know.
Jacuzzi.
I have, that's true. Yeah, that's, you know what I'm saying? It's a new thing. I don't know, right? Or maybe on my way over there, for example, somebody hits me with a car.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Right? And again, as outrageous as those things sound, it's just like, again, imagine if someone knew all things and everything. Wouldn't you want to ask them, like, God, you know, again, like it's like asking, you can't see around the corner. Wouldn't you want to know if there was a car coming and about to hit you? Does anybody that got hit by a car know they're going to get hit by a car? Mostly not, unless you do insurance fraud, I guess. But like, in any case, right? Like, you don't know you're about to get hit by a car or a car accident's going to happen. I wouldn't have gone in the first place.
Yeah.
I thought I was just going to the store. Why would I ask God if I should go to the store? Well, because he knows all things, right? And he's ordering my steps and he's my guide. But again, because I don't believe that God is who he says he is, then I think, oh, well, I can handle
I got this one.
I got this. Like, I didn't ask God, should we do a podcast today? Right? And this is where I'm telling you is like, I struggle with these things too, because it sounds so little. It sounds so small. Why would I ask God about this? But in reality, why don't we ask God about them? Why doesn't he order our steps? Why aren't we more open to, in all ways, of like, if God is who he says he is and who we say we believe him to be, right? We all be in church and we be over, you know what I'm saying, doing all the things, right? And this is where the hardness of my heart, right? And I'm saying this as I'm saying it through the mic. I struggle with this too.
Yeah.
I don't ask God about a lot of things. Majority of the things that I do every day ain't got no conversation with God.
But imagine if we included him in everything.
Everything, not just the big things.
Everything.
And how much would it save? Like, I just think on the other side, like, you know how much. And again, when we also get to that other side of understanding that with the law is God defining who he is. When you read it, God saying, yeah, I'm that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm that. Yep, I do that. That's me. Like, all of these things that I'm giving you, God's not asking you to do anything he's not. He's asking you to be everything he is.
It's just impossible.
It's just impossible, right? But, because it's impossible for us to be God, right? But, with that being said, his spirit lives inside of us.
Yep.
And again, his spirit does make us more like him.
Yep.
I'm more like Christ than I've ever been, right? And even too, so what? I could have a bad day today. I could do things that I had never done that were against all those things. But I'm telling you, on the other side of that, with that being said, that is who I am is not defined by what I do. The mistakes I make, the bad days I have,
Yeah.
you know, the sins that I commit, right? Like, if we go on it and we expect it to be like a journey, when you go on a journey, you don't expect it to be linear. You don't expect it to be, well, the closer I get to my destination, the easier things will get. You go on a journey, we're going across the sea. Yo, at any time, there could be a storm. At any time, like, just because the first 10 minutes were chill, don't mean that the last 10 minutes are going to be chill or even chiller, whatever, right? Like, this is a journey. There might be alligators over there. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? We might have to go through these crazy storms. There might be an army over there. There might be pirates. I don't know. But we start looking at things as linear, as that it should get easier, right? When in reality of being like, yo, I've never had that temptation till now. I've never been in a situation where that was ever even a temptation for me. So how are you going to say, oh, well, you did this and you ain't done this. You've been walking with God for 30 years, man. Your relationship must be really tough with God. When in reality of being like, yo, okay, I've never been hit with this temptation in 30 years. And, okay, I got hit with this temptation while also all of these other things were happening in my life. It was a perfect thing. This is happening, and that happened, and this happened, blah, 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 and stay on guard because here comes the lion, right? Or the one acting like a lion, hunting, waiting for us to be in that mode, waiting for us to be tired emotionally, waiting for us to be frustrated, waiting for us to not have patience, waiting for us to not have love in our heart, waiting for us to get hardened by all these experiences so he could slide in there, right? And use it as a foothold. And I think that's just, the thing with us is just like remembering that as well. It's like, again, the principle and the idea is simple, but how it actually like plays out in our lives and like how we actually incorporate it and like how we move is very, again, shows us, again, head knowledge to heart knowledge. Like we don't believe it, we know it, but we don't believe it because we don't act from that place, right? We more than not operate our lives, but our senses, what we can see, hear, feel, experiencing all these things that are right in front of us, right? But at the end of the day, again, ain't no one out here doubting the wind. You know what I'm saying? You can't hold it. Can't see it. You see what it affects. See the trees moving. And you know it. You're like, oh, I feel it on my skin, I guess, But in reality, no one's doubting the wind. We doubting God, though.
The creator of the wind.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah. We ain't no one out here doubting gravity.
So some people try it.
Yeah. you can try if you want to. Again, we can't see it. Right? I guess we feel the effects. Again, I can feel the effects of God too.
Mm-hmm.
Every day. Right? We can just say some magical force is happening why things just fall to the ground, but some's making it go to the ground. So I think that's the thing as well, is like us understanding that is like, yo, like, again, and also too, if you created a God that was that marvelous, what do you think? Like, are you supposed to understand him?
Like, yeah.
Are you like,
wouldn't be much of God if we did, right?
Yeah. Like, is he supposed to be stupid? Is he supposed to be like stupid as us?
Yeah.
Like, what is he supposed to be?
You're supposed to get him. Duh.
Yeah. Again, like, and again, me too. This is a me too thing. I like literally ask myself, like, is he supposed to be stupid? Like, is he supposed to make the same dumb mistakes we make? Is he supposed to agree with how, like, it's like us saying, like, again, the same thing. It's like our 5-year-old being upset that we don't see the world like he sees it. I mean, my dad won't let me eat ice cream. He's the worst.
Terrible.
He just doesn't understand.
Terrible.
He just holding me back from stuff. It's just like, bro, like, again, you only seen things we think we know so much.
Mm-hmm.
We be in our little cocoons.
Like,
That's why, I think it's just, again, like, that remembrance of, like, with it is just being like, again, and to wrap it up and to get to that spot is like, won't we just touch on that real quick too, Jay, of the, why would you not want your identity to be God's laws?
I think for me personally, I think it all comes down, like we said earlier, to your foundation, right? And so if you're on this journey of trying to achieve perfection through God's law, or even, let's call it the 10 Commandments per se, right? And that's, you just made your life about, I'm going to keep the 10 Commandments perfect. I'm going to do all of them. And given the situation you said, maybe, there's a leak in your house, and then you get in a car accident, and then let's say you stay perfect through all those situations, right? And then you find out your mother's sick, and then you stub your toe on a nail, and then a curse word comes out. Boom. Oh, you sinned. At that point in time, everything that you've worked for or worked up to or try to accomplish via
for the last
law,
let's make it dramatic. For the last 70 years, you've been perfect.
Perfect.
You've been perfect, which is
nothing.
It
doesn't if it happens.
Just, yeah.
And you stepped on a nail, which, albeit
all
like
right.
pretty sucks.
Yeah, that hurts. Ouch. Yeah.
Your entire life is about to fall apart just because you sinned. and you've gone through this perfect life of not sinning, and all of a sudden you made one mistake. And then from there,
I was gonna say, open that up too. Think about it, like if somebody is not walking in their word, right? They're like, what do you mean my whole life's about to fall apart? Like, they're like, I could sin, right? I could make a mistake and like, okay, and then like my whole, like all of a sudden I said it, the F word, and all of a sudden I lose my job, all these other things. But you're talking about like more spiritual.
Yeah, it's the mindset around it. Oh, you start going into these cycles of, am I a bad person? I've heard people say this in different scenarios. Am I still saved? Am I going to heaven? Oh my God, what does this person think about me now? Because that person heard me say the cuss word. Or what is my idea? Or how does this person view me now that they saw me do this? And now what was stable within a second, because you lost something, you have this world of instability that you're living in now. You're trying to find yourself. And again, not to say that, like you said, the external factors, but internally you're in search now. You're in scramble mode.
And this is with awareness too. I wanted to point this out too, is that there's a lot of people that don't even understand the concept of identity, right? They're like, and again, we're kind of further along in like the self. We've read a lot of books. Me and you both read a lot of books into like development, self-development, and all these other things, and also psychology and all these things. So, for example, what this might look like fleshed out in your life might be these triggered. You're like, why did I respond like that?
Yeah.
Why did I get really upset in that moment?
Yeah.
Why was I short-tempered? Right? Like, why did that even affect me? Because like that was from a 10-year-old that said something to me, right? Like, or because I've had that with my nephews or something, right? Like, like the little kids, they might just say something, right, off the cuff.
Uncle Joey, look at your shoes.
Yeah, look at your ugly shoes. You'd be like, shut up, boy. Like, it's just like, and you're like,
can't afford these shoes.
Yeah, like, hold on a second, right? But it's like, why did that trigger me so much?
Yeah,
right. Or again, why did I, want to fight that guy? Like, or why did they get me out of my game? Like I'm playing, and it's like, bro, I got so frustrated that I struck out the next 3 at-bats, made 3 errors in a row because I was so mad at what that person said, did, made me feel, they made me feel insignificant, devalued. Maybe even just like a patronizing, like patronized just, again, I feel smaller than I was 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Right? They took my confidence away. Right? All of a sudden I start feeling insecure, all of these things, right? And then when I started having awareness of those things, right? But it first starts with just identifying the emotion. This is not my normal. I was sad. I was angry. I was whatever, right? Picked an emotion. Why did it make me so happy? Sometimes we always want to go to the negative emotions. Why was I so happy on that little small thing? Oh, they brought me a gift. Well, why did that make me so happy? This is how my brain, I start breaking it down, right? Why did that make me so happy? Well, because, we grew up without nothing. And when my mom did get money or whatever, and I got a gift or something, like it meant a lot to me. And, blah, 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 and you start going these things and it's like, well, there's that story.
All of a sudden.
There's some trauma in there, right? That I'm attached to. I only feel loved when people buy things for me or whatever, right? And again, I'm just giving some generic story. But my point is again, these are things that shape our identity, and like you can call it personality, you can call it, it gets coined off as a lot of different things. But who, and Bianca McCall, when she's been on the podcast a couple times now, one of the things she talks about with trauma is like anything that changes the way that you view yourself or how you view the world, right, is traumatic, right? And so anything that changes the way you view yourself or how you view the world, right, which is, again, is large, right? If you believe yourself to be the greatest this and someone comes and challenges that, like it's threatening your identity, right? And where are you attached to that?
You see a lot of that, like with athletes, with people that have high levels of success. And we actually talked about this yesterday in our meeting about the word being fulfilled, right? And the scary thing is that, when you have your foundation or fulfillment, or you get your fulfillment from anything that can be taken away from you, which is anything on this earth, you're in a really, really scary and dangerous place, and so when you look at foundation and why having and also what's funny is going through this, 52 Bible verses for men, a lot of what they talked about in there, and this is important for men that are listening, for me especially, is the importance for men to have 10 toes down, solid foundation like a rock in God. And what that will do as far as the benefits that you'll receive from that in all other areas of life, from leading your family to being at work to your career to your personal achievements, whatever the case may be. When you're okay, you can give your example of what you always say with having things taken away. You know, I always look at you. You said, you know, I can walk into this building and be gone tomorrow. I'll be straight. You know, but truly believing that. You know,
yeah, it's one thing to say, and
truly believing.
I brought that up to the other part of that is like, I'm more removed now than I've ever been in my life of what other people think.
Yeah,
I'm not fully removed.
Yeah,
right, but I'm highly removed, you know, from that. And I think that again, like that's obviously been a blessing. Like from as I've been walking with God, I'm just less tied to it, right? And so I think that that's like also, again, it's all from the root, right? We see all these symptoms in our lives of what it looks like, right? But again, like I really mean that, and you know that just like from walking with me, it's like throughout like the journey with that is like I couldn't move the way that I move, and I couldn't run the business the way that I run the business, and I couldn't be the person that I am without the freedom and the transformation that God has done in my heart, where that has detached me from a lot of these earthly perspectives, things, you know, etc. And again, and also it's also much easier to identify in someone else when you, like we always talk about, like with leadership, it's like when you can identify it, it's like, you know, you already have it, or it's growing in your heart, or you have the awareness where you can identify that in somebody else's life. It's like, I can see all the time, I'm like, ooh, God working in their life. Like I love God. You know, we had, for example, I thought that this was, you know, hopefully she don't mind if I share the story. So the other day, Paige called me. And, you know, again, God's really been working in her life now for the last couple of years, like all these things. And so she called me and she's like, hey, you know, I knew something was different because she called me when she got in her car, and like, she's like, doesn't do anything. She's like Rode, she FaceTimed me. She's in her car. She's putting it right. And she's driving and she's like so excited to talk to me. And I'm like, okay, like this is not normal for her, right? Like she's FaceTiming me while she's driving. I'm just like, so I was, right? And so she's like, don't be putting it out there. But no, so she FaceTimed me. She was like, hey, so like she runs past the first part. She's like, we inter squad today. I hit 2 home runs, all these other things. And I'm like, well, that's dope, right? Like, I'm like, well, that's dope. And she's like, yeah. But like, that's not what I called you for. Like, you know, like that happened, but like quickly moves on, right? And she was like, during pregame, right? Like we were hitting inside the facility, and like we're hitting on this really hard machine, and I was hitting awful. Like I was, you know, nobody was hitting, but it was like this machine, like I was getting really mad at myself that I couldn't hit this machine and all these things. And she's like, I started a spiral. I started to be like, you know, like again, like why you need to be able to hit this, and this just means you're not a good hitter. And like she just started to spiral, but she caught herself, and then she stopped. She stopped, and she goes, nothing I do in this cage has anything to do with my identity, has anything to do with who I am as an athlete, has anything to do, you know, with like all of these things, right? And so before she went on the field, like she mentally reset and like detached from it.
Huge.
And then went out there and then she hit the 2 home runs, right? So she's like, the 2 home runs is dope.
Yeah.
But
the
byproduct of, you know, again, how my faith, you know, in those things, and like in that moment, how I could detach from what was happening. And that's what I used to do. And that's what I used to make me spiral and all these things. And like her being so excited about that. And then that's where I was like, again, you know, what I'll say back to her is like, I love watching like God work in you. Like I love to see like that you have that, and like that, not only that you did that, but you found that over your 2 home run day, right? Like you found that was part of the story, but like this was what meant way more to you. Like those 2 home runs are gone, but who I'm becoming as a person, right, is more important to me than those 2 home runs. That's great, but everybody will forget about them.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I did in you know, inter squad, you know, before season. Great. And I had a good day, right? But a lot of people are living on that high, right? I hit 2 home runs. I'm the greatest today. Well, how about when you go 0 for 4 Ks?
Tomorrow.
Right? Do you suck now? Does Mike Trout suck now because he went 0 for 4 Ks? Oh, because he's 0 for 20, so he's, again, awful. Like there's no reason for him to be, that it's pointless for him to be on this earth. Like, because again, like it sounds extreme, but that's the
people
spiral.
think like that. No.
That's the spiral.
I've seen it.
Well, if I'm not hitting, well, if I'm not playing baseball, well, if I'm not this, like if softball's bad, everything's bad. If baseball's bad, everything's bad. If work ain't good, everything's bad. Right? They go home, they start taking it out on other people. That's where when your identity is in that and it can control you. It is your God. It is an idol. Right? And this is what God, when he describes idols and those things, right? When we idolize something, we're putting it above God. And it gives us identity, and it dictates how we respond to things, right? Where God on the other side of that too, like it's not all of a sudden like if I went over 4 today, like God cares about you, right? But it's okay. So what? Like it's like if your kid, like almost think about this. I mean, some people might mean a lot. I was just like, think about if your kid like went a little outside the line when he was coloring something.
In trouble.
Yeah, you'd just be like, oh, worthless, terrible. All these other things. Like it's like
never gonna make it.
Yeah, you're never gonna make it. All these other things. You're like, what's the point of you being here? You can't even stay in the line. It's just like it's silly. It's silly what we give value to. Like we're just on a journey. Today we did okay. Okay, let's learn from it and just make some adjustments. And like, I don't need to get all emotional about it, right? Like it's not even worth the effort because it's not my identity. It doesn't matter. It's just feedback. Take the feedback and make an adjustment. Take the feedback and make an adjustment. Take the feedback, make an adjustment. Learn, be curious, right? Like we don't know. And even too, then also when you make an adjustment, don't be in love with that adjustment. You might be wrong. Yeah. The adjustment might need an adjustment. For the rest of your life, you're making adjustments. And you're in a different place in your life. Who has ever lived your exact life in your exact situation and made the perfect call all the time? Name them. Jesus. That's it. And even too, like again, along with that, it's just remembering with it. It's like, again, you're making your best call. You're making your best call in your situation and where you're currently at. And at the end of the day, you could be wrong. Why are you expecting yourself to be right? Just remain curious. Remain curious. And this is a me too, right? This is like just remain curious. You don't know. And if people are pushing their worldview, right, into you and you start to believe it, that you're supposed to know, you don't know. You don't know. Now, the opposite will get you, right? When you think you're supposed to know and then your performance just goes boo, 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 and you're performing way below what you could do because you're so attached and that is your identity, rather than being like, yo, like, and again, I'll say this too as well, from my personal experience. The more I was attached to what other people thought, their beliefs, all these other things. Like I'll tell you this like directly into my coaching conversations. We talk about this a lot. But for example, when I was a younger coach with less experience, and again, experience isn't the best teacher. Evaluated experience is, right? The adjustments that are made. But again, I would work with pro guys, and if the session didn't go well, right? Maybe they didn't click with my information. Maybe they didn't blah 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 blah. Maybe whatever. Maybe they just didn't move really well today. Well, I would go home feeling like a failure, right? Like it was awful, right? I'm tied to my performance, right? Where now on the same side of that, it's like, okay, let's say the session, okay, well, why didn't it? I use it like a study, right? Like, okay, take them, I sit in your office and I'm like going through every video and I'm like, ooh, I should have went that way. Instead, when I started doing this, that's when the whole, it started going bad. It started going south. And then I make a hypothesis, right? I have an idea of why it may have went bad. So I'm going to try to do something different tomorrow. See how it goes. Maybe that's wrong too. Okay. Make an adjustment, learn, make an adjustment, learn, right? I'm not tied to, and again, if I didn't have a good session with a hitter, it doesn't mean that I'm not a good hitting coach.
But if your foundation is being a good hitting coach.
Yeah, that's great. I was literally going to say that. Like, if for you believe that you need to be a good hitting coach.
Nasty. You're in trouble.
Yeah. We can get stuck. And that's where you get mixed in there too as well. It's like, Do I need to be a good hitting coach to be happy?
Yep.
Do I need to be a champion, right, to be happy? Well, guess what? There's a new champion every year.
Every year.
And even Nick Saban ain't holding that one up. No. Every champion, there was a different one. Who's been champion forever?
No one. Jesus.
I'm saying? King of Kings. But it's just like, keeping that in mind, right? It's like, again, even if you're the biggest and baddest today, tomorrow someone could take the title. Where's your identity? Where's your identity? Is it in being perfect, appearing perfect, doing the right thing all the time, all those other things? Like, hey, it doesn't matter. And I heard someone say this, I was watching a reel or something like that too, is the idea behind, the things you say, and we've heard it from the business side, but like the things you say, your performance, all of those things will be forgotten. How you make people feel is what they'll remember, and that's how they'll identify you. Yep. Right? Like, and at the end of the day, like, great, like, they'll always, for example, like, do you know who the richest person was in the world 30 years ago? Most people don't even know now. And sometimes it's more celebritized now. But even then, like, there'll be another guy. There'll be another guy. There'll be another guy. Like, right? Like, there'll always be somebody new. Like, why would you want to place your identity in that? Like, just tough. And again, I have. Like, I remember, again, when I was growing up, those other things, like, I didn't have enough perspective to know that there's something far greater, right? Which is where, when Jesus comes and he says, if you really want to come first in the kingdom, like, you need to come last, right? It's like, you need to be a servant. But he's trying to explain, I'm telling you, boy, God is deep, boy. Every year, I just keep going, like, as I walk more and more with him and I spend more time with him, like, all the things, it's like how he slowly changes your perspective is wild. Because it's just like, and then you start getting so extreme. You've been spending so much time with God. When you first open the Bible, you're like, what are they talking about, bro? Mm-hmm. Like, what are they talking about? It's like they've spent so much time with God that it don't even make sense to you. It sounds like a different language.
At first. And
then all of a sudden, and then just slowly, and you're like, oh, I know what he's saying. Oh. I'd be going back highlighting stuff I've never highlighted before.
Right over
like, man, I didn't even think that was important.
Yep.
Now I'm like, man, that's gold.
Mm-hmm.
That's nasty. I'm talking about it on a podcast now. I've read that verse 50 times. Right? Now it meant something so deep to me. And I think that's the thing is, like, again, it's like as you experience your life and you walk with God. And again, that's why I want to get people, again, I can hand anything to anybody. And we, again, like, we live our lives this way, but like, just is the freedom, because I spent a large part of my life, and I know people that are way older. I told that to Paige the other day. I was like telling her how proud I was that she acknowledged and walking with God and like where her identity is and like all those things, because I'm like, girl, like, I definitely didn't have that relationship at your age
at all.
But also, I know people that are 80 years old that don't got that relationship. So don't get it twisted by age.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? There's probably someone that's 10 that's got that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And there's probably someone that's about to pass away today that don't. And it's again, like, with God and that foundation, it's just like, man, like, that's why I give God so much gratitude too as well. It's just like, man, I'm so happy I didn't start that relationship and trying to build that when I was like 60 or whatever. It's just like, I don't need another 30 years without you. Nope. Boy, I'll tell you what.
I'm good.
I'm straight, player. Like, I couldn't walk. I couldn't let things slide off me. I can't show up and be who I am and be the consistent, all these things that I now that embody, like, the things that, again, that people love and admire about me. Anything love and admire about me is from God. Like all of that came from my relationship with God.
Sheesh.
Like, oh, okay, like, let's say, oh, you got so much energy and you don't mind being in front of people, all those other things. Like, yo, God started that when I was a baby, when I was a little kid, when I was class clown in my things, when I was all these other things. Like, yo, like, God prepared that. He put people around me that, pumped wisdom into me. Like, I hated reading books, but he put a mom in my life that was just trying to help my reading comprehension. I was failing reading comprehension, not because I couldn't comprehend, but because I didn't want to read the damn book. Mm-hmm. My mom was like, my son's smart. Blah, 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 blah. So then my mom had me start reading Scooby-Doo.
Come on.
You know what I'm saying? Scooby-Doo got me reading, dog.
Got you off right.
You know what I'm saying? Now I'm reading textbooks. Now I'm reading Bibles. Now I'm reading other things. Like, again, imagine if I didn't like reading, like that foundation of like how much I read the Bible now. Oh my goodness.
Read a book.
Read your books. Read your books. It's just a good little discipline. Even just, I'm going to give you this. Someone said this the other day is, we were talking about this in Bible study, about ways we can build closer relationships with God and all those things, and also reading our Bible. Just look, here's the thing. You just got to make a commitment to yourself. I'm going to read the Bible if it's 5 minutes a day. If I read 2 verses, if I read a chapter, sometimes I read a chapter, sometimes I read 50 chapters, sometimes I read 6 books, right? Like it just changes, right? There's different seasons. Different seasons I'm reading crazy amounts. Other seasons I'm reading less. Some seasons like, I haven't picked up my Bible all week this week, and then I felt it and I'm like back in. Over time, right? Just do your thing. But if you make it a habit, like, again, it became a habit to me where it's just like, all right, and I need, again, this is one that's been clicking back for a really long time there. For about a year, I just started going like, it's just a habit for me. Like, before I go to bed, I'm going to read my Bible for a couple minutes. Yeah. Sometimes I ended up reading it for an hour. I wasn't planning to do it. Maybe it's a couple hours, whatever.
Yeah.
Right? But I don't know what he's going to talk to me about. Like, I don't know what's going to hit me today. But it's just it's just a habit. If you just make it a daily habit, you don't know what it's going to change. You don't need to know. You don't need to know what's doing to your heart, all this stuff. You may feel like it's doing nothing. Just make it a habit. Just every night before bed, or when you wake up in the morning, or whatever. Both. I love, both. You can work it up, do all your things. But I'm telling you, like, the one thing I like late at night is a lot of times you're not rushing.
Yeah.
Morning, you're like, the day's got to go. You're like, got to go do things. You're behind, whatever, And that's what Paige actually mentioned that the other day. She was like, I started reading my Bible at night, and I really like reading my Bible at night because I feel like I'm more grounded. And I'm like, it's like I'm not rushing. Like, like I even started telling, like I would do it. Like I'm like, I'm gonna watch this Netflix movie. I'm like, okay, before I do that, I'm gonna read the Bible for 10 minutes. Yeah. God's going to come first. I'm just going to read my Bible. I'm still going to I'm going to watch that movie on Netflix or whatever. Cool. But I'm just going to read my Bible for like 10 minutes. And it just becomes a habit. And then all of a sudden, man, your perspective just changing. Your inputs, the books you're reading, where you're spending your time, like all this stuff. Like, and then you know how it is too with the growth. When you start seeing it, and you start feeling it, like how you responding and how much joy you got, and you start, all those fruits start popping. I mean, the self-control you have, and like all these other things, like it's a compound effect, right? The momentum, the momentum starts just going, but it just starts with some small, like give yourself 5 minutes. All right, I'm reading the Bible for 5 minutes. Also, 2, stop reading King James Version. All right, I'm just kidding. You can read whatever you want, but I'm just saying, if you're sitting there trying to read a Bible, it's already hard enough to understand, and you're like, thou
let King James go.
Went to the whatever, sound like Shakespeare. Okay, read like NLT version or something like that, or read some NIV, something like that, right? Where you can, again, if you have the Bible app on your phone, you should already know this, right? Get the little Bible app. You can go through a billion translations, but again, let me plug y'all up. NLT is solid. Like you guys super easy to read. Again, a lot easier to comprehend. All the stuff, right? You're over there reading Shakespeare. Tough.
Good at reading, though.
Good at reading. Oh, that's classic. All right. You got anything else for the people before I pray them out?
I don't.
All right. Let's pray it out real quick. All right. Dear Father, thank you so much, God. Just God, for your awareness and the ways that you continue to work through us, God. God, we just pray that you can just continue to open our hearts and open our perspective to your word, God, and just help us grow a closer relationship to you, God. Whatever's holding us back, whatever barriers that we've created between us and you, we just pray that you continue to remove those things, God, so that we can grow a deeper relationship with you. And God, just give us a passion for you, God. Like open up something for us. We just pray all these things in Jesus' mighty name. Jesus. Amen. 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 Till next time, Farm System out.